shall teach them diligently, to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house,
Oh, good morning, you guys. Man, I was so excited about what I was reading today that I forgot you were joining me, but I'm actually glad that you're here because now I can share with you what I've been reading. Last week, you guys talked about Jesus feeding the 5,000, and that was in Matthew 14. And I believe it was verse 13 through, 21. Well, this week we're going to be reading verses 22 to 33. But I'm going to cover just the first two verses of that section. So verses 22 and 23. So if you have your Bibles, I'd love for you to open them up to Matthew. It's the first book in the New Testament, chapter 14, and we'll begin reading in verses 22 and 23. Immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. So there's two main points in these two verses. First, Jesus sent the disciples and the crowds away. Why do you think he did that? Well, the first reason was even though the disciples loved to be around Jesus and they loved him, he wanted them to leave because they didn't know him correctly yet. And he didn't want them to be confused by being with the crowd. And the second reason, or the second point that we see in verse 23 is that Jesus prayed on the mountain alone. Why did he do that, you guys? Well, I'll tell you. The reason why is because he loved to be in presence of the Lord. And that was his Father, right? He prayed because he's the Son of God. And as God's Son, he submits to his Father and he depends on his Father. And he also delights in his Father. He loves to be with his Father and do the things that makes his Father happy. He's found greater joy in doing his Father's will than in anything any temptation could offer. And we saw that he was tempted by Satan, right? Because he's still fully human. And as a human, he could be tempted. And so being in his Father's presence and praying gives him more joy and fulfillment than anything this world could possibly offer. So this is the lesson that Jesus wanted to teach his disciples, to find protection and pleasure in the powerful presence of God. So let's see what's in store for you in the next few verses with Miss Evangeline.
Thanks, Kristen. The disciples' boat had drifted far out as the wind had blown them. The disciples were still rowing between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. Why did Jesus allow this to happen? He is teaching them and us that we need to trust in him. Suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character. Character produces hope. Romans 5:3-5. When we hope in God, we are never disappointed. Jesus saw the disciples struggling and came to them. He walked on the water as God can do. However, the disciples were scared seeing a human walking on water. They thought they were seeing a ghost, an imaginary creature. When they heard Jesus' voice, "Take heart, it is I." This is the same when God encouraged Moses at the burning bush when he said, "I am." God told Moses, "I will be with you." He let his presence pass by to encourage him. Jesus passed by the disciples to show his divine presence to them, and his presence would rescue them. Online, you can print out this resource page of Jesus, and actually Peter is missing, but you can decorate it, and your child can then retell the story for today's lesson. So Jesus invites Peter into his presence. Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you," he was not doubting. He knew Jesus. This was an act of faith. He fully trusted in the presence of Jesus. Peter figured he'd be safer outside of the boat and next to Jesus. Second, he submitted to Jesus. He was seeking his permission to jump out. Peter wanted to be with Jesus, and Jesus welcomed him. But trouble started brewing when Peter took his eyes from Jesus and focused on the howling wind. Peter began to sink, but he still had faith, crying, "Lord, save me!" Jesus responded to him in love and saves him. He rebukes Peter because the Lord disciplines the one he loves. He showed Peter and the disciples that his presence is more powerful than they realized. And now Katie will take over and finish up the rest of the lesson and conclusion.
Hi, children! I was wondering if you guys could play a game of Simon Says with me. Well, actually, I was thinking we should call it Peter Says. Okay, ready? Put your hands on your head. Oh, I didn't say Peter Says. Okay, Peter says touch your nose. Peter says touch your toes. Touch your ear. Ooh, I didn't say Peter Says. Okay, Peter says touch your chin. Peter says tap your shoulder. Pinch your cheek. Got you guys. Okay, Peter says make it rain. Come on, guys. Try really hard. Make it rain. Make it rain. Concentrate. Make it rain. You guys can't? What do you mean you can't make it rain? Just kidding. I know you guys can't make it rain because me and you, we're humans. We don't have that type of power. We can't make it rain or stop the wind or make a tornado twirl. We don't have that type of power. But can anyone tell me who does have that type of power? Yeah, God does. God has that type of power because he made everything and he's all powerful. Now, a couple lessons ago, Jesus and his friends were in a similar situation, right? Where there was a huge storm and his disciples were really scared. And they went to Jesus, who was sleeping very calmly and not scared at all. And they asked him to help. And what did Jesus do? Yeah, he spoke and then the storm stopped. He told the storm to stop and it stopped. And the disciples, they were amazed and they wondered who was this man? Because like we talked about, humans don't have that type of power. However, this time is even cooler. Jesus stepped onto the boat and the storm completely stopped. And not even that, the boat went immediately from where it was to the destination that it needed to go, and they were miles away. Isn't that amazing? But the coolest part is this time the disciples didn't wonder who Jesus was. They knew that he was the Son of God and that he was God. In Matthew 4:33, it says, "And those in the boat worshipped him, saying, 'Truly you are the Son of God.'" Isn't that so cool, guys? I hope in this lesson you guys all learned that we can love, trust, and worship Jesus as the Son of God. And we are so happy to see you this week, and we're even more excited to see you next week, where Jesus defines discipleships and shows what a perfect disciple looks like. Okay, guys, bye. We're gonna miss you so much. I hope you guys have a great week. Bye-bye.